So we thought it would be exciting to bring you a guest speaker, and Rob Curley is a phenomenal one. Rob is the only editor in the nation for newspapers to have won the top award in print journalism, which is the Pulitzer Prize, the top award in broadcast journalism, the DuPont Award, and the top award for online journalism, ONA's best news site in the world, all of which happened when Rob was the chief content officer at the Las Vegas Sun. Rob's been on the cover of national magazines, including Fast Company magazine, and has even been featured in an Apple commercial. Creativity magazine named him one of the 50 most creative people in the world. And he's the only newspaper editor in the world to give tech talks to Google programmers on the web giant's main campus in Mountain View, California. Along with his time in Las Vegas, Rob had previously been in leadership positions at the Orange County Register and the Washington Post. He was the youngest vice president in Washington Post history. Rob loves newspapers, and he brings that passion to the Spokesman Review as the editor-in-chief. We've also been blessed that Rob loves ag forestry. Since taking over as editor-in-chief at the Spokesman, he has dazzled class members with his visionary approach to business and life. As all of us are taking on the challenge of adapting to COVID, we can be inspired and learn lessons from Rob's quest to innovate a path forward for the Spokesman Review and the newspaper industry. Please help me welcome Rob Curley.
Hi, can you all hear me?
Yes, sir.
All right. Well, I'm just gonna get started, so if that's all right. So I'll make one clarification. I didn't win all those awards. The newspaper I was at won all those awards, and I just happened to sign the expense reports. The big difference. So, but I'm just gonna ramble for a while. I can't really hear or see any of you, so I'm mostly just gonna entertain myself. So I hope this works okay. So you probably all were wondering why would they ask a newspaper editor to talk about innovation and inspiration? And I mean, it's clear that the horse buggy maker must not have been available, something like that. So my background was pretty well explained. I've worked at a lot of large media companies, and even though I've wanted to be a journalist since I was in the third grade, which means I've had no luck with women since I was 11, that I also could code. So early in the 90s, I was asked if I could build a website for the newspaper I'd always wanted to work at, the Topeka Capital Journal. And 6 months after we built it, it was named the best news site in the world, which is awesome because there were like 3 of us. So the bar was pretty low at that time. But the company I worked for said, we should have this Rain Man nerd over in Kansas come help us build all of our websites. So I did that. I built websites all across America, from Jacksonville to Juneau. And I even got to build the Masters golf website. So, but this is in the early days when there wasn't a lot of supervision. So my career kind of changed, and I got to go to Lawrence, Kansas, where I was very homesick. So I came, and it was when I worked in Lawrence that a lot of interesting things happened. We were young and we were fearless, and we had all these kind of web nerds who just didn't know how things worked. And so we hacked into another website that was kind of new in that era called Google. And instead of them being angry at us, they asked what if they just gave us the passwords to figure out how to do all this stuff. And if you've ever wondered how Google Maps ever got integrated into other websites, it was the code that our team wrote. We invented a language called Django, which is now the backbone of a lot of fast programming that's done in the world. And it was all done in a basement in Kansas. Well, at that time in New York Times, all these media executives were coming from around the world to see how we were doing it. And one group of execs from the New York Times wanted to send a reporter there to write about us. And, after a couple of months, a front page story appeared that said the newspaper of the future is in Lawrence, Kansas, and all of us were hired away. So that's kind of the basic gist of how all of this happened. But it's really my love of newspapers and really small town family owned newspapers that matters to me. After I was the editor of the Orange County Register for 5 years, And I'm not passing judgment, but the family that owned it was the Kushners. They're not great with money. It went into bankruptcy, and when it came out of bankruptcy, it got bought by a hedge fund. And I'm not going to explain to you why hedge funds are evil, but trust me. And I asked my wife if I could stay in newspapers, but this time for a family-owned paper. This becomes the first time I've ever applied for a job in my life, and I called Stacy Coles, got the kind of patriarch of the family who owns the Spokesman Review, and I said, my name is Rob Curley. Please don't post a job. That's how I applied. So long story short, that's how I ended up in Spokane, and I've loved it. So when we got here, I put together kind of a 5-year plan, and you couldn't jump ahead. It had to be done in 6-month increments. And everyone thought I was kind of crazy until at the 18th month, weird things started happening. We became the only newspaper in America whose numbers grew. We went from 68,000 subscribers to 82,000 subscribers. The first time the newspaper had circulation growth since 1994. So then other things were happening that just didn't seem right. And that's when my boss said, can we go to year 4 in your plan? And I'm like, no, we can't. You got to go slow. We're building an infrastructure here to hold all of this stuff. But I want to talk to you about what the basis of all of those ideas were. So one of them is what I'm going to refer to as the 5 Ps. Now, this is going to come off like a very newspaper-like strategy, but it's not. This is a strategy that if you look at the most successful businesses in America, you will recognize these 5 traits. Number 1, passion. Do you understand what your customers care about? And this is what makes corporate journalism fail. They're producing the same newspaper in cities all across America. Like, it breaks my heart that Tacoma and Boise and Miami have to share basically the same newspaper. Because we all know Boise and Miami are exactly alike. That's not true at all. That's terrible. There's no way. So this is why corporate journalism fails. They don't know what matters to their customers. We live in a certain area of our country because we want to be around our tribe, the people who have the same values of us and share the same sort of vision as us. So that means every city is different. You have to know what your customer cares about. What are they passionate about? Number 2, practical. Look, life is it's hard. I mean, when we're born, they ought to give us an instruction manual, but they don't. So if you can find a way to make their life easier, then that matters. You know, I tell people, like, it isn't so much about saying, look, don't you understand that what we're growing is important, and we're the breadbasket of America. We feed the country. Just tell me how to cook chicken easy, and you know, I just need practical stuff. I believe the message. I just want it to be easy. Practical matters, especially in today's world. I mean, especially. The third one is really close to me, and that's personal communication. It's why I will speak anywhere that asks me. It's why I love, instead of emailing people, I love calling them back. I love talking. Well, if you haven't heard, I love talking, and personal communication matters now more than ever. Why? Because our entire world is filled with technology. I mean, from the moment we wake up until the moment we go to bed. And if you don't believe me, I'll bet you almost all of you, the first thing you do before you even get out of bed is look at your phone to see what your emails are. You're not even out of bed yet. And my guess is the very last thing that you do is look at your phone to see if you had any messages before you go to bed. Technology permeates our entire life. And in that scenario, humanity matters, because it's wild. It actually becomes special because no one else has it. When you show humanity, it feels different. And what really ticks me off about this is the one company that does it great is the one company that's the most tech-based of all, and you know, kind of quasi-evil here, and that's Amazon. I mean, they are destroying so many local economies by shutting down mom and pop brick and mortar stores, and it's just heartbreaking what's happening. But call their 1-800 number for customer service and tell me what happens. You're not going to get a phone tree that says push 1 for this, push 2 for this, but a human is going to answer and say, how can I help you? And God dang, that makes me mad. I mean, they have realized that humanity matters. Playful matters. And the reason why playful matters is because computers don't have a soul. And if you don't have a soul, you can't have a sense of humor. But in today's world, where we're so afraid of making somebody upset or whatever, we think humor's not an option anymore. But the irony is that humor is what shows that we're human. So when I worked at the Washington Post, the word on the street was that I was crazy. I totally was. And so no one wanted me to report to them. Instead, I reported directly to the chairman of the board. And his name was Don Graham. He's a wonderful man. And every Wednesday, because neither one of us eat, we would just walk around the district and talk. And he was like an encyclopedia. So I'd ask him all these questions. And I loved the history of newspapers. So I said, Don, when your family bought the Washington Post on the steps of bankruptcy court, your grandfather bought it. It was the number 5 newspaper in Washington, and he ran it and nothing changed. And then your father took it over, and 1 year later, it was the number 1 newspaper in Washington. I mean, he did that with great journalism, right? And he said, no, we went from 1 page of comics to 3 pages of comics, and we've been number 1 in Washington, D.C. ever since. And I'm like, really? And he goes, yes. Playfulness matters, Rob. And he goes, someday you're going to be running a newspaper. And when you do, the most important advice I can give you is never screw up the crossword puzzle. And let me tell you, in my first month here, I did that. That's when I figured out our voice message system at the Spokesman Review holds 88 messages, because it would fill up with 88. I would call them back and then fill up with another 88. Don't screw up playfulness, okay? It matters. And then the 5th thing is pleasure. Look, we work our asses off. All of us work so hard. We work 40, 50, 60 hours a week. Why do we do it? We do it for at the end of the week so we can experience the things that give us pleasure. Some of us want to go hiking. Some of us want to go fishing. Some of us want to play guitar. Some of us want to knit. Some of us want to travel. Whatever it is that we love, that's what we work for. We work for that moment where there's this thing of pleasure, which is different than passion. So these become the keys to a business. Now look at all the successful businesses. They have figured out ways to embrace these. This is why when you go to Walmart here in Spokane, you see t-shirts for Eastern Washington and Gonzaga. They're trying to show, see, we care about what you care about. We care about the same things. This is their way of trying to telegraph that. There are these moments like that where these successful businesses do that. But it's more than those things, So but here they are. I normally have a PowerPoint, but this is my new PowerPoint. So it's being recorded. So these are them right there. There are these other things that are key though to the editorial strategy, but they're not really newspaper strategies either. One should be that we serve our readers, and serve for journalists forever has meant that we look under the table to make sure that government is behaving. And that's true. That is what serve means. But I would argue that serve means something very different. So I live in Spokane, and I'm going to kind of look at the idea of serve through someone with my eyes. So someone in their late 40s, early 50s, have a full-time job, a career. They've just bought a new home on South Hill. They got a mortgage. And so they're going to work. And I don't know if I've told you this, but in Spokane, we do not know how to plow roads when there's snow. I mean, we're terrible. We're like in the top 5 in the world at being awful at it. So they're driving to work down South Hill, and they hit one of these potholes because we don't know how to plow. And by the way, I've always wanted to do like a topographic map of these potholes because they're so damn big, and name them after our politicians, because I thought that would be awesome, like a map. But so you've hit one of these potholes, and now your car is making this weird noise, and you're like, oh my God. So you go, I have a few minutes. I'm gonna stop by the garage, and you go in the garage, and this guy with this face tattoo, and there's nothing wrong with face tattoos. I'm just saying, I think that would hurt. So he's got a face tattoo, and he's like, this is gonna cost $8,500 to fix. And you're like, look, I only paid $9,000 for the car. I can't do that. And so you're like, I gotta think about this. So you drive to work, car's making all this mess. You get to work, you get to your cubicle, and the guy next to you says, did you see that corporate missed profits by 12%? They're gonna lay off 5% of us. And you're like, I just bought a home on South Hill. They can't do this to me. I can't do that. And then you're thinking, last night I was talking to my son, who I love with all my heart. He's ready to go to college, and he's like, Dad, I've decided I'm gonna go to Gonzaga. And you're like, I mean, have you thought of Eastern Washington? I mean, it's beautiful. I mean, I've heard it's like the Harvard of Washington. I mean, you're doing everything you can to get out of paying $50,000 a year on this tuition. And you're thinking about your daughter who came home with a new boyfriend whose pants were on so tight. And the first thing you were wondering is, how the hell did you get those pants on? I mean, you got a lot of things on your mind right now. And the last thing you want to do is go home and read a newspaper that says, here is part 16 of our 26 parts look at homelessness in downtown Spokane. I mean, to me, that just completes the circle of crappiness in your life. What you want is for the newspaper to say, look, we're all stressed out right now. Let me tell you where the 5 best places to get some pie are. Let me tell you where to go get a good pizza. Let me tell you how you can watch this movie that hasn't been available since we were kids and watch it now. They want to be served. They want to be taken care of. Serve doesn't always mean government bureaucracy. Serve often can mean, how do you make someone's life better? That's my favorite part of what's, there's been a lot of crappiness about COVID. But the best part is it's made us all reevaluate what matters in our life. Fix that. Fix what matters in people's lives. The second thing is save. Look, for the longest time, journalists have thought save meant we're going to do a watchdog story every Tuesday. I hate those watchdog stories. You want to know why? I've never seen a law change because of something you posted in a Tuesday afternoon paper. It's never changed. You have to write about something for a year and a half. You have to get Olympia's attention. You have to get our DC delegation's attention and say, this matters. Help us fix it. The very first project we worked on when I got to the Spokesman Review was called A Year in the Fields. And we were going to show that in a state that just focuses on Costco and Starbucks and Amazon and Microsoft and Boeing, the agriculture was what mattered. It was the infrastructure that held everything up. And this group had been forgotten. And we didn't do little stories. We did stories that took months to research. And they didn't just fill a page in our newspaper. Each story was like 6 pages. And when the year was over, it was funny. One of the last people I talked to was ag forestry. And they said, you know, it would be great if you would talk about this crop, this crop, this. And I'm like, you know, you're right. This can't be a year in the fields. We're going to keep going. So we went a second year and kept telling these stories. And what happened is a group that had been overlooked now realized they had a voice. And they realized that when something weird was happening in Washington, we weren't going to call our delegation. We weren't going to call Pelosi or Trump. We were going to call our farmers and say, tell us what it really means. We don't know. We're not farmers. And they would tell us. And it meant so much that we produced a book that sold out in 3 months. You know, it was amazing how quickly it sold out. And we've now turned that project into a traveling thing that when we all can go back to county fairs, your county fair will have a look at what agriculture means to remind people. It's going to be more than just visiting the cattle barns. It's going to be, this is what farmers do to our economic situation in the state. That's what save means. It's not a little watchdog story. It takes forever. It takes a long time. And then serendipity. Serendipity is so important. And serendipity is a key business strategy. And I'm going to tell you why surprising someone with delight matters from a business standpoint. It matters because walk into Target and tell me what's the first thing you see within the first 50 feet. You see that the decorations have changed. If you go every 2 weeks, they've changed the decorations in the store. And then over on the left, they have the little dollar bins. And you're like, you know what? I got to look through the dollar bins. And then you're like, can you believe I can get 62 erasers for $1? This is awesome. I'm buying the erasers right now. And then you look over to the right and you're like, they have clear beer now. It's called seltzer. So I'm buying some. It's like ginger. It's going to be awesome. And then you get home and it's awful. It really is. But what's happened is you've seen the decorations. You've got the dollar store thing. You've got the cheap beer, and the endorphins are running through you. I mean, you're filled with this positive vibe. And when people are filled with positive energy, they spend money. Happy people like to spend money. That's serendipity. Anger doesn't make people spend money. Happiness does. So this becomes key. So this is serve, save, and serendipity. These things matter. Okay. So look, this is a strategy that is important to me. And when I was trying to explain it to Stacey Coles, he thought I was making it up, but it's not. It's a real business strategy. It's called, how do you make people like you? It's called the virtuous circle. If you can make people feel good, then it works as a business strategy. It's successful. The virtuous circle is the key to making this work. So this becomes a strategy. What becomes important is we see what our industry, people in our industry are doing across the nation. We go to conferences and we come back and say, you know what they're doing over there in Louisiana? And I'm like, failing, just the same way we are. Be a contrarian, okay? If your pack is failing, then don't do what they're doing. Be the opposite. It's okay to do things differently. As a matter of fact, if you look at every single innovation that's happened in America, it doesn't happen in some big lab financed by a billionaire. Apple was invented in a garage. You know, the most important things happen in the most unsuspecting places. That's what matters. So, you know, I normally talk for a couple hours. It's pretty hard to get this down to 20 minutes, but that's what I got. And I want you all to know that I believe in you. I mean, and this isn't a talking point. We are now working to become the only daily newspaper in America with a full-time ag reporter. It's because this stuff matters, okay? So let's please go at this together. I mean, right now COVID has messed up the world and it needs our positive vibes. So that's my kind of closing point, I guess. And unless somebody would like for me to talk about more, that's what I got.
Rob, I think you teed up the rest of our afternoon perfectly without even knowing it. The virtuous circle will be making an appearance in our update around the organization. The things you hit on, passion, practical, personal communication, those are all things that ag forestry values. And as we consider our business strategy going forward, we take great excitement in the success that you're having with the Spokesman Review. We're also a very traditional organization, and we just truly appreciate the time and energy that you have invested, not only today, but with the ag forestry classes that have been blessed to hear from you. Not the 30-minute version, but the 2-hour version, which is incredible. And then also the tour of the special tour of the Spokesman. So Rob,
you know, and you all get that tour. You know, at some point you just got to email me and say I was supposed to get the good tour and I didn't. The Coles have accidentally given me the wrong key, so I can open every door. So we should go.
Rob is serious about that, and I really do encourage you to email him and ask him for the tour. If you have time, you should do it. And if you're in Spokane for the tour, give me a jingle too, and we'll go have a beer or something. Rob, thanks so much for your time today. We appreciate you.
No, I love talking to you all. You guys have a great meeting, okay?
Thank you.
Bye-bye.